Do not interrupt me when I'm talking. This was a few years back. After over a decade of doing a complex job, above average, getting many compliments and letters of thanks, my new boss was irritated at me for interrupting. My role was everything the technical people didn't do. Trash duty, phones, conference room, calendars, contracts, finance, training, facilities, purchasing, equipment, etc. It was realistic to say that a couple times a day, some wildfires, often technical work stoppages, needed the boss's input. This even after I headed off many problems before they reached his attention. About a couple weeks in, he told me that under no circumstances was I to interrupt any conversations he was in, and like a good little bootlicker, the second in charge added that he too was tired of my interruptions too, and I needed to stop. As karma would have it, not even a day later, both of them were deep into a conversation about baseball, absolutely nothing to do with work, and normally I would have interrupted. They both saw me multiple times and didn't ask what I needed. I waited patiently with pleading eyes while they stretched out their conversation. After a few minutes, I started shifting foot to foot. Probably looked like I needed to use the bathroom. And yet they didn't stop. Finally, when they soaked up all the fun they could and ran out of baseball things to say, the boss in a very snarky tone asked if there's something I needed him for. Yes, sir, your boss's boss, Mr. Nameless here, is waiting on the phone. I could see the blinking phone line from where I was standing, and he was indeed still waiting, and he needs to speak to you right now. Not one smirk or iota of disrespect from me, but I did leave to use the bathroom even though I didn't need it. Policy was canceled right after that call. Lol. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Storytime with Uncle Jon. Today we're taking a look at r/maliciouscompliance. So, I don't know if that would make you a bootlicker. I mean, rules are rules where you work, and if that's the rules, so be it. They'll end up paying the consequences for this, so it is what it is. If you feel like you're a bootlicker for following company policy, then, there's a little bit of something else going on there. I think people throw that name around a little too often. There are laws in society, there are rules at work, there are rules in my household. If my kids follow my rules, does that make them bootlickers? I don't think so. I think it's a matter of respect and just, following the rules. Anyway, I digress. I will say though, if you're a person that likes to interrupt a lot, that's a little bit of a character flaw. My wife likes to interrupt a lot. It's one of her character flaws. I have some of my own character flaws. I'll interrupt once in a while, and I am too quick to anger or get irritated or however you want to phrase it. That is a character flaw. We try our best to control those character flaws and work around them the best we can. While we do that, we try to give each other, most of the time, we try to give each other a little bit of grace and, patience while we work on those things, but nobody's perfect. But if I was that boss or, the second in command under that boss, I would have probably made the rule a little more clear. Like, generally speaking, can you try not to interrupt unless it's something really important? Like, if we're in the middle of a conversation, you just stepping in and, piping up isn't always appropriate. That's also a societal thing. It's not always appropriate to interject your thoughts while somebody's in the middle of a sentence. That's just common decency. So yeah, I would have made it a little more clear and a little more flexible, as long as it didn't get abused. So I can see some of the issues from both sides here on this one. I'm recording on my phone today. I'm recording through the same mic that I always use, but I'm recording it into my phone's audio, because I know when I have the audio and this camera hooked up all at the same time to this laptop, it doesn't quite have enough RAM to handle all the things at once, and it tends to want to it gets itself bound up once in a while is the only way I can describe it. And all of a sudden everything will kind of glitch and I'll lose half a sentence or 2 or 3 words. And it's really annoying when I go to edit. So I'm hoping recording this way and then dropping the sound file onto the laptop for editing will maybe cure it. I don't know. You're going to hear some echo in this room. It's made of concrete and glass. Can't do much about that. It would take way too long for me to make some sort of portable thing that I could hang up in here to dampen the sound. And it would probably look more trashy than what's already here. So we're going to work with it the best we can. And you can still hear the cars going by, I'm sure. But such is the nature of being in the bridge house. Sick day. Another post reminded me of this gem. My old company manager would always ask for a sick note from her doctor. It's about $50 from my GP. Wow. I was at his office when my boss, Mary, called me to make absolutely sure I had a sick note. I had 2 company credit cards, one for internal use, tools, etc., and one for external, billed to clients. Neither would work at my doctor's office. I called Mary back. I say, my company credit cards aren't working. Mary says, use your own and file an expense report. I say, no, I'm not here to lend money to a multi-million-dollar company. Mary says, fine, use mine. Medical secretary says, we can't take credit cards over the phone. Mary says, then you won't be paid for today. I said, send that by email right away, please. And she sends it. Not good, Mary. I replied to the email that I'll need a union day to file a grievance as you're refusing to pay me is against our collective agreement. There is nothing in our collective agreement stating that I need a note for 1 day. It's for 3 consecutive days. I'll also need a second union rep as I can't represent myself. Union days for grievances can't be refused for any reason unless there's a catastrophic event. Mary calls me back and says, fine, I'll pay you. I say, no, the violation's already occurred and the grievance demand filed. We're proceeding with this. Mary says, but... I say, my union rep will be in touch. For 8 hours pay and 1 of a sick note. Me plus other union rep 4 hours to prepare plus 2 hours travel each. 12 hours unpaid, 4 hours each to present the grievance. Grievance was won at the first stage, so I got paid my 8 hours, but the company had to pay 20 man hours out of pocket, unbillable to the client, because Mary was enforcing her own rules outside the collective agreement as a management right. I was maliciously complying with our grievance process, which I brought up during the presentation. Bonus content. Mary stated that what was written in the collective agreement was open to interpretation and she was correct and I was wrong. I asked her to flip to the last page of the PDF and she did. I say, who had signed the contract? Mary says VP of HR, National Union Rep, VP Operations, Matthew, and you, the VP of your union accreditation. I say, so what you're saying is you, who wasn't at all present during the negotiations, knows more about the contract I've negotiated for the last 3 renewals? Mary says, this meeting's over. I'll have my answer emailed to you within 7 days. I say, you have 3 business days as per our collective agreements, which you know as well. I'd hate to file yet another grievance for non-compliance. Listen, I'm not always on board with unions. I'm not totally against them either. I just think there are certain unions that really don't work well. And it's not usually the union members per se. It's usually the higher ups and the reps and things like that that like to take advantage and try to bully people on both sides. They'll bully the people, the company that everybody's working for, and they'll also try to bully their union members. And I went through a little bit of that when I was working for the Board of Education. Educational unions can be a real pain in the butt. And not always out for your best interest. You pay into union dues and everything else, and you try to follow everything to the letter, and sometimes you still end up getting screwed by your own union. I can't get into any details about that, but suffice it to say, it's not always what it's cracked up to be. But if you are part of a union, you're a unionized shop, and you're the company, and everybody sat down and negotiated and signed the papers, you got to follow the rules. That's if the rules are in there and everybody negotiated and signed, that's it. It's set in stone until the next set of negotiations comes up. So this lady playing fast and loose with her management position was just kind of stupid. She knew the rules just like everybody else and decided she wasn't going to follow them. So, hey, good for OP. Can't fit my bicycle in the luggage hold? A few months ago, I booked a return ticket to a nearby town over a busy holiday weekend. I wanted to do a little cycling over the weekend, so I phoned the bus company before the day of the departure to check if I could take a bicycle with me. They confirmed that I could, so long as I arrived at the bus station half an hour early. On the trip down, they loaded my bicycle into the baggage hold, even opening up a special side hatch to make it easier to get it in. So I enjoyed a few bike rides while I was down there. Come the day of my return, and it's belting rain. I get to the bus station a half hour early, but soaking wet. Considerate as I am, I purchased some paper towels to wipe down my bike so it won't dampen anyone else's luggage. Then the bus arrives. I go straight over to the baggage loading area and ask the guy if I can put my bike in. He replies, no. I say, do I need to wait? He said no. He's just not going to let my bike on at all. So I spend a quarter of an hour arguing with the guy as the clock ticks towards departure time. I tell him the bus company's already confirmed I could bring my bike, but that doesn't move him. He keeps telling me there's no space in the hold, even though I can see there's space in the hold. Now, this is a Sunday and I have work the next day, and it's the end of a holiday weekend, so I might not be able to get a seat on another bus, even if they refund me my money. and nobody's talking about a refund. Finally, departure time has arrived. I yell out, "Well, head office said I could take it on the bus, so I'm taking it on the bus." And I hoik my bicycle in the air and step up into the passenger section of the bus and start making my way to my seat. Now my seat was booked for the upper deck, so I also have to hoik my bike up the narrow spiral staircase to the upper deck, which I do. My bicycle is extra large size, so all things considered, I'm astonished how limited and shallow the scratches were that I left on the plastic finishes of the spiral staircase as I went up. Amazingly, no one made any move to stop me, and the passengers on the upper deck all came onto my side, helping me to secure the bicycle and making no complaint about having to squeeze past it, even though it almost entirely blocked the corridor. Every now and then the conductor would come up to check our tickets, see the bicycle blocking the way, and turn away defeated. Every time he did so, I made sure to say loudly to my fellow passengers, "I don't know, to me it would have made more sense to put it in the hole, but it's their bus. They make the rules." And the other passengers would agree with me. The bike and I got home safely. Some people just like to be difficult. I've never dealt with a bus ride like that before. I've always just had regular luggage, no bicycle. But I've dealt with it with carry-on stuff while getting ready to take a flight. Went through the whole process of buying a backpack that was the correct size or just under the maximum size in each direction and the cubic inches and blah, blah, blah. And then I get to the airport plenty early. I always go to the gate and they have there's like a little box with a sign attached to it. In the box, if your bag fits in that box comfortably without having to jam it in there, then it's okay to go overhead. And I usually have another small bag with some other fancy sensitive electronic equipment that I put under my seat. And I never had a problem with it fitting in that box. It always just slid right in. So one time, and I asked the ticket agents at the gate, and they say, "Yeah, that's fine, perfectly fine." Go to get on the plane, and twice now I've had a flight attendant who must have been in a pissy mood from the flight before or something, I don't know. But twice I've had a flight attendant tell me that I couldn't bring my bag in. Well, the first time they caught me right as I was entering the plane off of the jetway and tell me that I couldn't bring my bag in as a carry-on. And I said, "But I'm going by your guidelines." And, I try not to argue because, you can be put off a flight for almost no reason and be put on that special list that we all don't want to be on. So, I try to argue gently and, and present my case so that, I can fly. But I'll be damned if they're going to make me check my bag. And the first time when they caught me coming off the jetway, another flight attendant stepped in and says, "Oh yeah, that's fine." So I don't know if this person was new or just sour and bitter for some reason. I don't know. So I managed that fine. And then the second time was when I was already at my seat, putting my bag in the overhead compartment, and a flight attendant was coming from the rear of the plane. I don't know why they were coming from the rear of the plane through the corridor while everybody was boarding, but anyway, and started to argue with me that I couldn't take my bag, that I would have to check it. And I'm thinking, this is just ridiculous. I mean, I'm looking at bags up there. I know darn well this one lady got away with putting a whole duffel bag up there. When I say duffel bag, think almost like the military sea bags. They have straps that you can put over both shoulders, one sling over one shoulder, or the little handle on the side. Like you would see in the military. The guys, when they get out of basic training, it's got all their crap in it. I've seen people stuff one of those in an overhead compartment, and I know they didn't fit in the box. So, I don't know, man. Some people just take life way too personally and allow it to, or maybe they were just an asshole to begin with. I don't know. Either way. Follow policy? Okay. A few years back, I worked in a corporate office where things ran pretty smoothly until our new boss, Mr. Micromanage, arrived. Mr. M was obsessed with one thing, following company policies. He didn't care if policies were outdated, inefficient, or outright absurd. If the rule existed, you had to follow it perfectly, and he loved catching people not complying. One Monday morning, he called a meeting to lecture us on policy adherence. He ended his speech with, "If it's in the manual, you follow it, no exceptions." I'm not a fan of being micromanaged, but hey, rules are rules, right? I knew that our company's policy manual hadn't been updated in years, and some policies were questionable, so I decided to have a little fun. One of the most outdated rules was about how to handle printed documents. According to this gem, any printed company document, no matter how minor, needed to be reviewed and stamped by our document compliance officer before being distributed. Oh, and guess what? That position had been eliminated in a round of budget cuts 2 years ago. But hey, Mr. M said no exceptions. The next day, I printed out a standard quarterly report that everyone in the office needed. When people asked for it, I told them, sorry, I can't distribute it until it's been reviewed and stamped. I sent an email to Mr. M asking where I could find the non-existent document compliance officer. He came storming over to my desk, confused. Mr. M says, just send out the report. I say, well, I'd love to, but as per company policy, it needs to be reviewed and stamped first. Where should I send it? Mr. M pauses and glares. Just follow the policy. I nodded enthusiastically and let it be. Word spread quickly, and soon everyone in the office was complying with every arcane policy in the manual. Karen from HR, she started enforcing the dress code policy that required all employees to wear business formal attire at all times. Suddenly, everyone was showing up in suits and ties, and people in accounting were running spreadsheets in cocktail dresses. Jake from marketing, I almost said Jake from State Farm. Jake from marketing, he made sure to send a request to Mr. Micromanage every time he needed to make a 10-cent photocopy, as per the ancient policy that all expenditures, no matter how minor, must be approved by management. Oh, God. By the end of the week, the entire office was a disaster. People were wasting time and resources, projects were delayed, and everyone was cranky from wearing stiff, formal clothes. Mr. M tried to reprimand us, but we just kept saying, sorry, sir, just following the policies like you said. It only took 1 week of chaos for Mr. M to call another meeting, where he begrudgingly told us to use common sense instead of following every single policy. He even promised to update the manual. And that, my friends, is how our office turned into our temporary circus of hilarious compliance, until our boss finally learned that some rules are meant to be bent. That's just it. In most cases, you can't have it both ways. If you want everybody to follow the rules to the letter, no exceptions, and you said it, you better be damn well sure somebody's going to figure it out, and they're going to comply maliciously and make your life absolutely effing miserable. Like I always tell my kids, my wife, bosses, whoever, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Do it correctly. I work in Arizona's hometown grocer's meat department. I love most of my customers. Some of them, not so much. This is about one of those guys. Trout Hat Terry comes into the meat department looking around in a manner that I could only describe as inspectorial. Like he was agreeing or disagreeing by nodding or shaking his head with everything he looked at. A flurry of eyebrows and shoulders. He comes to me as I greet him with my usual, hey, how's it going? Then he spits right into his spiel. Yeah, I want that piece, you see it? Very abrupt and unnecessarily adversarial. Plus, I'm terrible at meat plinko, where I have to figure out what he's pointing at using 120-degree angle that needs adjusting for our difference in height. I'm thinking, dude, you can poke the glass as hard or as woodpeckery as you want. I still don't know which one. It's the same thing with my other job when I've got a pack of obscure cigarettes. I just put my finger someplace and they say higher, lower, lefter, righter. Easier game for both of us. Anyway, we finally get through the beef gauntlet when I throw it atop the scale. Every time I put meat on the scale, I put it on a mini individual wax paper. I had another one that I had grabbed it with, and it was on top of the meat as I weigh him out and print the ticket. He waits till the ticket's printed, meat wrapped, and in his hand to say, hey, do it correctly. Correctly. I look at him, the way my dog did the first time he heard me fart, just head cocked trying to figure out what just happened. You put extra paper on the scale, you made it way more. Redo it. Make it correctly. Correctly. I guess he didn't like the price. I was going to do what I usually do in this case and show him that the paper is literally weightless and doesn't change the scale when I saw a glorious opportunity. I saw that the code was wrong that I put in, like, way wrong, to his benefit. I easily could have typed in the same code I did before, but I decided to apply my malicious compliance card. I say, oh crap, I put this in as New York strip instead of filet, man. My bad. Good call. I wrapped it happily and handed it to him with an Aaron Rodgers booger-eating grin on my face. $26? Jesus. Well, I guess I deserve that. Ha. Nice to see the guy take it in stride, after I finally entered the weight correctly. I have a friend. I guess I can call him a friend. I mean, we don't see each other often, and he kind of gets under my skin, but I think I'm the only friend he's got. So, I have a friend who was an engineer by trade, and he tends to like to be argumentative. He knows a lot. He knows pretty much everything. All you got to do is ask him. And, you know, you can say, well, the river's flowing north and south, and he'll sit here and say, Well, technically, like actually a better example is the highway that I'm looking at that crosses from my left to right. Route 13 runs north and south, generally speaking. This section of the highway actually runs east and west by the compass, if you looked at a compass standing in the middle of the road. There are going to be bends in the road every so often, but the highway, generally speaking, runs north and south. So if I stood in the middle of that bridge and say, we're facing east now, he'd say, no, you're facing north. And it's just that type of argument. And that's what I picture this guy at the meat counter being like. It's like you're arguing semantics at this point. But good thing you pointed it out, because now you get to pay the real price instead of the discounted price, all because you wanted to, have a pissing match over a piece of wax paper that probably never made that scale budge an inch. I tend to see a lot of retired guys like that, whether it's at, auctions, at the meat counter, at the auto shop. They want to argue with the auto tech or the service writer because, they say that this and this is wrong, and they say, no, it can't be that. Well, why did you bring it to the shop if you're going to sit there and argue with me? This is my diagnosis. This is what it's going to cost to do the work. You either pay and I do it, or you don't and you go home. You work on your own car, take it to somebody else. Some people were just born to argue and bicker. Drive up. Okay then. I was at the drive-thru of a coffee place in Canada that's named after a hockey player who's far more famous for his donuts. I pulled up to the speaker and started to order my drink, donut, and the pack of hockey cards that I seem to be addicted to buying. I say, "Can I have an extra large tea with 2 milk?" I started my order already wondering what card I'll pull. Then from the speaker comes, "Drive up." Now I knew logically that the person on the other end was being impatient and had assumed I only wanted a drink. But I'm tired of the phrase, "Sorry, I'm not done with my order yet." So I drove up. The cashier told me my total and handed me the debit machine, and was surprised when I said that I also wanted cards and a donut. I think the kicker is when I said, I assume he couldn't hear me and told me to drive up to finish my order. It was a minor inconvenience for them, and didn't add more than half a minute to the wait behind me. I'm sure they won't learn anything from this either. I'm convinced the only way people like that will learn anything is if it happens, at least a dozen times during their shift, every shift. I can understand it's difficult dealing with the public, especially dealing with the public through speakers, because I can't understand them. They can't understand me half the time. I speak with a mush mouth most of the time. And it's just, then you add regional dialects and accents and everything else. And it's a pain in the ass, and you get tired of dealing with people after a while. I get it. But at the same time, it's your job. You chose to stay at that job. So at least try to do it to the best of your ability and don't make assumptions. It's very simple. In most chains or, any decent place, if you're ordering through a drive-through speaker, almost every time they will, or at least should, say, "Will that complete your order?" Or "Is there anything else you'd like to add to your order?" I know they don't get commission for adding to the orders, but you can only make the line go so fast, and it's easier just to say that one little phrase or one little question to make sure that, everything's done. It just smooths everything out. And speaking of dealing with the general public and being tense and angry at the end of your day, one of the best ways I've found to unwind at the end of a long day when I did do retail and worked with customers all day was to go home and grab a bar of Uncle Jon's soap, one of Uncle Jon's wax melts, get the wax melt melting, nice and warmed up so that, I get the general overall fragrance that I want for the evening, filling the room up, and then start up my shower or bath, and then grab that bar of Uncle Jon's soap and, get to cleaning. Oh, you didn't know we made soap? We do. Not only do I sit here and run my mouth on this computer, we make bath soaps, we make wax melts, we make body scrubs, which we're trying to get straight on the website, so don't get too excited about that one yet. We make beard products that keep your beard neat and tidy and softer. Didn't use any today because I was late getting out of the house. And everything smells great. There's so many scents to choose from. There's something for everyone. And in the soaps, there's enough scents, honestly, that you could probably choose a different scent every day, almost every day for a month, and never run out of scents. There's 20 some scents. And with it being seasonal, I think we're up at least by 2. We've got like a hot cider and a pumpkin spice scent, which smells way better than it sounds. Trust me. It's not just your basic white chick pumpkin spice scent. So I kind of pride myself on that. We even do it in the beard stuff. And a lot of guys really like it, and their wives really love it. And that's important. So anyway, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, do me a favor, click on the website right down here below. And yeah, go check it out. And even if you don't like that kind of stuff, I'll bet you got a family member that would love something handmade for Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever you happen to celebrate. All right, guys. Till the next video, we'll see you.